The Magnolia Between Us, a haunting journey through love, regret, and the silent seasons that never let go. People often say time fixes things. I used to think so too. But I've learned that time mostly teaches you how to live with things you once thought you couldn't. My marriage to Yoon Seo started in the spring. The kind of spring that still had cold mornings and bare trees. We moved into a small apartment in the east of Seoul, where the buildings looked tired and the streetlights stayed on a little too long after sunrise. The place had one bedroom, low ceilings, and a magnolia tree right outside the window that bloomed once a year. She said she liked the quiet. I liked that she could find peace in places others overlooked. We weren't in love when we married, but there was respect. Quiet effort. She folded my shirts with this meticulous tenderness as if the crease of a sleeve mattered. I tried not to forget the days she had meetings or the snacks she liked from the corner store. We both believed, stubbornly and silently, that this would be enough to build a life. The early years were calm. I woke early, came home late, and poured myself into work like it could fill the spaces between us. She filled those spaces differently with little patterns. Morning coffee with one sugar cube. The same old classical playlist when she read. A notebook she kept by the bed, even though she never wrote in it. Sometimes I wondered if she was lonely. I think I knew the answer, but I didn't ask. I buried the question like I did most things that scared me. The shift happened like water seeping under a door, slow, quiet, and steady. I stayed later at the office and started saying yes to weekend projects. I told myself it was for us, for the future. But the truth? I stopped wondering if she was still waiting for me. And worse, I stopped hoping she would be. That's when Hyeon appeared. She worked in publishing. We met through a friend at a dinner I didn't want to attend. I remember the way she listened like nothing else in the room mattered. She asked about my favorite books, about things I hadn't thought about since university. There was a softness in her presence, but also a sharpness. She saw through things, through people, through me. It started innocently. Texts, casual coffee, talks that lingered past the point they should have. And then it wasn't innocent anymore. It was long drives, Sunday afternoons spent in places I didn't mention to anyone. It was the sound of laughter I hadn't heard from myself in years. And guilt, the kind that doesn't scream but hums beneath everything, steadily. At home, Yoon Seo noticed. Of course she did. She wasn't naive. She just loved quietly. She didn't accuse me. She didn't cry. But she stopped asking if I'd eaten. She no longer waited up. I'd find her asleep, or pretending to be, with the light turned off and the window open just enough to let in the night air. Then, one evening, I found the papers on the kitchen table. No note, no hesitation. Just her name in steady handwriting at the bottom, waiting for mine. I stared at them for what felt like hours. I signed them in seconds. Not out of coldness, but out of fear that I'd fall apart if I didn't. She moved out quietly. I helped her carry a few boxes. I didn't say much, and neither did she. We shared the elevator ride like strangers. When the doors closed, I stayed in the hallway. I think I was waiting for the sound of her keys jangling one last time. It never came. The apartment was too quiet after she left. I kept thinking the silence would bring clarity, but it didn't. Just echoes. The rustle of curtains, the hum of the fridge, the way the magnolia trees swayed at dusk. It all sounded heavier without her in it. A few weeks later, Hyeon moved in. She brought change, bright curtains, coffee mugs with quotes on them, art books, a splash of warmth I hadn't realized I missed. We danced around the kitchen, made weekend plans, filled the air with music and unspoken hope. For a while, I believed I'd done the right thing. I convinced myself that following what felt real had to mean something. But the stillness I'd carried from before didn't leave. It just hid better. There were moments with Hyeon that felt whole, but there were also gaps. We tried to build something new, but it never quite clicked into place. Like assembling furniture with missing screws. She never complained. But I saw it in the way she stared out the window too long or lingered in the hallway before coming inside. She waited for something. Maybe for me to become the man she believed I could be. But I had already become someone else. Or maybe I had always been this way. Then one morning she was gone. No fight, no note. Just her journal left behind, closed like a door that wouldn't be opened again. I didn't chase her. Instead, I wandered. Through neighborhoods filled with ghosts. Past bakeries that used to be bookstores, benches we used to sit on, alleys I once rushed through to get home. I ended up outside the old apartment. It had different curtains now, but the magnolia tree had started to bloom again. Pale petals, quiet and stubborn. I stood there longer than I should have, remembering the version of me who once believed in quiet effort, who once thought that not breaking something was the same as loving it. I didn't visit Jeonju again after that. Maybe I was afraid. Or maybe I understood that some doors shouldn't be knocked on twice. What we'd shared had ended, not abruptly, but with the kind of slowness that makes the final moment feel inevitable. She hadn't run. She had simply chosen herself. And I had chosen everything else. Years folded themselves into quiet. I stayed single not because I had vowed to, but because no one felt right. I worked less. I walked more. I started frequenting used bookstores, the kind that smelled of old paper and forgotten ambition. I didn't look for anything specific. I just liked how the books waited, patiently, like people who had long stopped expecting anything but still hoped to be found. On Sundays, I walked through a small park near my apartment. There was a magnolia tree on the corner. Not the same one, but close enough in shape and age that it felt familiar. It bloomed late most years, sometimes not until the cusp of summer. But still it bloomed. I never reached out to Yunso. I wouldn't have known what to say. What could I offer her that I hadn't already broken? I imagined she wouldn't want apologies, especially not ones that came with so much silence between them. I figured she'd built a life that didn't need me in it, and maybe that was the kindest truth I could give her. To not return. To not unravel anything she'd rebuilt. As for Hyeon, I heard she moved to Australia. It came through someone at work, a passing comment during coffee. She'd taken a position at a publishing house in Melbourne. Started fresh. The kind of fresh that people crave when everything familiar becomes unbearable. I wondered if she found what she was looking for. I hoped so. Sometimes I thought about reaching out to either of them. A letter, a message, something small. But I always stopped myself. It wasn't pride, just this quiet understanding that some stories lose their shape when revisited. Like trying to repair old paper with water, it only makes it tear worse. Life became smaller in some ways, larger in others. I started noticing things again. The way sunlight spilled across the floor just before dusk, the rhythm of rain on metal roofs, the sound of children laughing as they raced down the street in spring. These moments didn't demand much, but they gave something back, like pieces of a self I hadn't realized I'd been missing. There were nights I'd lie awake thinking about the lives we could have had. Me and Yunso, me and Hyeon, me alone. Not with longing, but with curiosity, a soft wondering. I didn't dwell, but the thoughts came uninvited but welcome in their own way. Sometimes I'd imagine Yunseo's shop in bloom, with lavender, peonies, and baby's breath wrapped in brown paper. I pictured her hands moving with quiet confidence, greeting regulars with that small, polite smile she used to give me after long days. I imagined the man who might come by every Saturday to buy flowers, the way she might laugh when he asked her the name of something he'd already forgotten twice. I didn't feel jealous, I felt grateful. She had found her season. Maybe not the one we'd planned, but one that made sense for her heart. And Hyeon, she too had taken a different road. One away from me, and perhaps away from the version of herself she had tried so hard to preserve in our time together. As for me, I kept living. No grand endings, no dramatic new beginnings, just life. And it was enough somehow. The stillness I once feared became something else, a companion. It reminded me of all the things that had changed me, not with regret, but with reverence. I no longer waited for spring to begin again. I understood now that even winters had their own kind of grace. Not everything needed to bloom to matter. And yet each year when the magnolia opened its petals, I stood beneath it like a ritual. Remembering, not clinging, just remembering. Because some stories don't end. They echo, quietly, in morning light, in unanswered messages, in the way someone used to fold your shirt. They live in the spaces we once filled with silence and choices and things we meant to say but never did. Maybe that's what memory really is, not just recollection but communion. A way of sitting beside your past self without scolding him, letting him speak, letting him mourn, letting him be. I think about that man sometimes. The one who believed effort was enough. The one who mistook distraction for purpose. Who loved perhaps too late and understood too slowly. I don't hate him, I just hope he knows now what took him too long to learn. That care is not love. That presence is not the same as understanding. That silence, when stretched too thin, can become a form of cruelty. And that the people who leave us quietly are often the ones who once stayed longer than they should have. I walk more now. Sometimes through crowds, sometimes alone. I smile more easily at strangers. I keep a small plant by the window, though I forget to water it often. I'm learning to be gentler with things that take time. There's a woman I sometimes see at the park. She walks her dog and always carries an umbrella even when it's sunny. We don't speak. But once our eyes met, and something passed between us. Not attraction, not recognition. Just a moment, a kind of knowing. Maybe nothing will come of it. Maybe it already has. Because sometimes the stories we need aren't the ones we chase, but the ones that meet us quietly, in places we never thought to look. And maybe that's enough.